Professor Karol Sikora, who says we should aim for the 27th of April as a date to relax our own lockdown. And why have you alighted on the 27th, Professor?
Well, if we look at the figures, and it's only my opinion, we're going through the plateau. The incidence is bouncing around at the top. It's going to go down next week. And then the hospitalizations are going down. Then the deaths, which will be great, will also go down. Inevitably, the deaths going down will take a bit longer than the number of new cases. We've got to think about how to get Britain and all countries back to work. 4 European countries are going back to work tomorrow. Austria is leading the way. They're opening the kindergartens and schools. Now, it's too early now, and we've got to obey the government guidelines. But I hope on Thursday, when the committee meets, they'll consider a gentle relaxation, beginning with young people, families, then moving, keeping the vulnerable and the elderly well secluded, and then move out to make small businesses open, places with less than 50 people, and then gradually during the month of May get everybody back to work. That would be my strategy.
Well, let's go to Bojan Pancevski, who's an Austrian national who now lives in Berlin, writes for the Wall Street Journal, which covers Austria and Germany. Very interesting that Austria is beginning to now look to unlock itself. But what has Austria done prior to this that we haven't done in the UK?
Well, basically, Austria went into the lockdown much earlier. I think it was the 12th or the 13th of March, and their lockdown was extremely strict right from the onset. So they managed to sort of flatten the curve drastically, and it would appear that the population was quite disciplined in doing that. Parallel to that, they were doing quite a lot of testing, and I think that's key. The government is saying that's key going forward as well. So what they're doing, they're starting to slowly reopen the economy as of tomorrow. Shops of up to 400 square meters. Sorry for the metric. You should see what's that in feet, and will reopen. That basically means almost all shops in central Vienna will open. The city will come back to life, and then it will be a gradual process. As of the 1st of March, most of the economy should be on track to reopen, with the huge caveat that, you know, the government will be looking at the figures, will be looking at the new infections. So if everything works out fine,
now you talked there about when Austria went into lockdown. That was around the time that in the UK we were continuing to allow huge mass gatherings at the Cheltenham Race Festival, at big football matches, at big pop concerts and so on. That was exactly the same time. The significance being that on the 11th of March, that was when the World Health Organization declared this officially a global pandemic. And we're already seeing catastrophic scenes in countries like Italy. Are you surprised, Bojan, that the UK was so apparently lax and complacent here?
Well, it's not for me to comment. I think on the 12th of March, the Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, said to people that they were free to go to football matches and the like. So I think a lot of countries were quite sort of, you know, they took a gradual path towards understanding the challenge, which is unusual. I think Austria was among the first, the Czech Republic as well in the neighborhood in Central Europe. The Czech Republic already opened some of the shops, is also reopening the economy because they went in early, they were strict, and now they can leave early with bigger confidence.
Okay.
I mean, Britain is not alone in this. You're quite right. I mean, some of the leadership, Britain, France, Spain, you know, the United States, they were slow to kind of understand. I think they were balancing the needs of the economy with the lockdown, you know.
And also, I think there was a concern about behaviour and compliance. Dr. Jenna Macciochi, you're an expert immunologist. Tell us about the risk of reinfection, because when you lift the lockdown, I mean, of course, the lockdown is going to suppress infection, but when you lift it, then the risk of infection increases. Does that mean that we have to some extent, coexist with the virus? Is there a vaccine on the horizon? We heard over the weekend the prospect that there possibly could be a vaccine in September. Do you think that that is likely? And without comprehensive testing, which we stopped very early on, how do we track, trace, isolate and treat people who are infected?
Yeah, I think there's a lot in that there. To start with, your first question, I think the lockdown is in part to help mitigate the impact on the healthcare service and to protect the vulnerable people. But if you think about it now, for 3 weeks, we've had lockdown and we have millions of people in the UK sitting in their homes, obeying the rules, not coming into contact with infected people. Therefore, these people do not have any immunity to this virus. So as soon as we go back to normal, then we should expect that there could be another a peak happening in the future. So I think there's going to be a real protracted game where we have to phase things back in, and then when we see the cases rising again, put in measures in place to try and mitigate that impact on the health service.
Okay, Duncan, sorry. Please finish.
I was just going to say, in terms of a vaccine, I think that it was really encouraging to hear what came out of Sarah Gilbert's work in Oxford on the weekend. And I think that they have a very clear roadmap, and it could mean that a vaccine could be much earlier on the horizon, because they're using a technology that's been very well tested in their hands, and they're experts in the field of vaccinology. So I think that's really encouraging.
I mean, on that point of the vaccine, people like Bill Gates say 18 months minimum, based on all his experience, which is extensive in this area. But have we ever had a situation where the entire world has been trying to get a vaccine for the same thing like this? And does that help speed everything up, because you've got all the best scientists all collaborating, all trying to get the same thing?
Yeah, I think definitely when you have a situation like this, it's all hands on deck. And there's a certain immediacy that is pushing this forward. But I think there's always going to be bottlenecks with the manufacturing and distribution and getting this to all the people who need it as quickly as possible. So even if we have the vaccine and the technology and the safety, it's the actual making and delivering to the people that's going to be the thing causing the most delay.
Okay, let's bring in Duncan Bannatyne. Duncan, you've talked very openly and honestly about the devastating effect on your business. Let's start with that. What impact has it had on you?
Well, you know, I had a very good company that I built up for over 20 years. It's a pulsating company, and we employed 3,200 people. And we can't continue to operate, obviously. And, you know, we still, even though we're closed completely, we still lose £5 million a month. That's just for paying our rents and interest on the bank and things like that. So there must be a period where we must stop doing that. We either close the company down or we reopen the company. We can't just continue as we are.
Are you concerned, Duncan? I mean, because your experience will reflect a lot of business people's experience across the country. Are you concerned about the impact of a longer lockdown and potentially even the health impact of a longer lockdown?
Yes, I'm very concerned. I'm concerned more for, there's other companies as well who, I've just been hearing about companies that are in a situation where they can't take advantage of the 80% furlough payment from the government, because what you have to do is you have to pay your staff and then you claim 80% back, and they haven't got the money to pay the staff. So that negates them and they're out of the business. And there are companies that are in quite a bad way. And how many companies can we close? And how do we reopen them? How do we start the economy again? It's going to be very, very difficult.